Welcome to Lionel Nation Part 1. We have a great show for you.
Everyone loves that clickety-clack that's coming down the track. They can't ignore that all aboard, the smoke pouring out the stack. Hear that whistle blow as the train pulls out of the station. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's a Lionel mission. Clouds of smoke are rising high into a big blue sky. Down the line, right on time, the train is rolling by. Everyone turns around and stares in anticipation. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's the Lionel Nation.
The vision we have for Lionel Nation is to cover all things Lionel. Layouts, tips on operating, a look at some Lionel classics, and interviews with collectors. We'll talk about the latest from Lionel, plus anything else having to do with the Lionel Train Company.
Engine shining gleams, that mighty sound and steam. Pistons pound around and round, just like in a dream. Another train pulls in and arrives at its destination. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's a Lionel Nation. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's a Lionel Nation.
We feel video is the best way to capture the fun and excitement of Lionel trains. Because with video, you can see the action and hear the sounds. And with Lionel trains, hearing the sounds is a very big deal. That's why our first story in this, the first edition of Lionel Nation, is The Sounds of Lionel. Lights, color, action, sounds. That's what model trains are all about. And with electronic technology, what it is today, toy train sounds have surpassed the wildest dreams of pioneers like Joshua Lionel Cowan. But long before the new electronics, Mr. Cowan had begun to think about adding sounds to his toy trains. Lionel's first attempt to make toy trains sound like real trains was a gimmick called the chugger. This was in 1933. The chugger was actually a small electric buzzer that was supposed to sound like the chug-chug of a steam locomotive. It didn't. It sounded like a small electric buzzer. In 1935, the greatest innovation in toy train sound history was introduced: the steam whistle. The Lionel promotional copy made you think their new steam whistle was more important than, say, oh, scientists inventing frozen pizza. But Lionel's new whistle was pretty cool. You press a button and bingo! You hear a two-tone, mournful whistling sound. Close your eyes and you could almost see a real steamer passing in the lonely night. People loved the new whistle. Lionel steamers, both O-gauge and standard gauge, sold like hotcakes. But this was the streamline era, and new diesel streamliners were the rage. So when Lionel came out with their Flying Yankee and City of Denver, they added a whistle, not a diesel horn. Problem was, it was the same whistle they put in steamers, but nobody cared. The Depression was winding down, and people were just having fun playing trains. Lionel introduced their steam switchers in 1938. They came with a mechanical bell. That was a nice touch because real steam switchers rang their bells when they were working freight cars in the yards. World War II, train production was put on hold as toy train manufacturers switched to making things for the war effort. But after the war, Lionel went right back into train production. In 1946, the big news was smoke and knuckle couplers. But the whistle continued to be a staple on Lionel steam locomotives. In 1947, Lionel introduced a new electric locomotive, the GG1. It came with a doorbell buzzer sound that was supposed to sound like the real GG1's electric horn. It didn't. It sounded like a doorbell buzzer. Next, Lionel introduced an engine that was to be their best seller ever, the gorgeous F3 diesel. This was a great model, but the horn was a simple battery-powered bicycle horn. Most diesel locomotives Lionel produced up until 1969 featured the horn. Unfortunately, if the D-cell battery was left in too long, it would leak and damage the frame. In 1949, Lionel included a new mechanical bell in a couple of their diesel switchers. It sounded okay, but you couldn't turn it off. This tended to annoy parents if they were nearby trying to read the newspaper. In the mid-1950s, toy train sales started to decline. By 1969, Lionel was almost out of business, so they made a deal with General Mills to take over the manufacturing of Lionel trains. General Mills had lots of new ideas. One of them was the mighty sound of steam. This was better than the chugger of 1933, but not much. They should have called it the mighty sound of static. They also added a new electronic whistle sound. It sounded cold and hollow. It didn't have the soulful, realistic sound of Lionel's original steam whistle. Another miss was the electronic diesel horn in 1973. It didn't sound like a real diesel horn and was an erratic performer, so Lionel stopped producing diesel horns. In the early 1980s, Lionel came up with a new, more reliable board, but the sound wasn't much better. Another sound feature developed in the 70s was the mechanical sound of steam. It was basically a wheel filled with BBs that rolled along the middle rail, a low point in the history of toy train sound, at least from a design standpoint. On April 25, 1986, Richard Kuhn purchased Lionel from Kenner Parker. Dick had been a Lionel enthusiast since his youth and came loaded with ideas on how to improve Lionel trains. On the top of his list was the development of a new sound system. He called it Rail Sounds. The first engine to be equipped with rail sounds was the B6060 steam switcher in 1989. The steam whistle sounded like a real steam whistle, not like an electronically manufactured noise. Also new was a crisp, clanging bell, combined with a more distinctive chuffing sound. When the steamer came to a rest, you heard the whooshing sound of steam being released. Lionel diesel locomotives now came with a realistic sounding horn, clanging bell, and the roar of a whirring diesel engine, which would change octaves depending on the speed. All these enhancements were a giant leap forward in the sounds of toy trains, and were met with enthusiastic acceptance by operators everywhere. In 1992, legendary rock musician Neil Young joined forces with Kuhn to create Lion Tech. Like Dick Kuhn, Neil was a Lionel enthusiast and brought a new perspective in electronics that helped advance the rail sounds concept and create the Trainmaster Command Control System. An improved Rail Sounds 2 was introduced in 1994, and over the years, Liontech has continually improved and enhanced the sounds of Lionel trains. Toy train sounds made a giant leap towards realism. Blow the steam whistle, close your eyes, and this time you were sure a real steam locomotive was passing.
All passengers, the Olympian Hiawatha has arrived.
Union Pacific 4006, all clear ahead. You are good to go. Over. Thank you. We are clear. 4024 out.
So we've come a long way since the Lionel Chugger of 1933. But sometimes, after hearing all the fancy new sounds, it's nice to go back and hear just the sound of a toy train clickety-clacking over the track, and the sound of an old-fashioned toy train steam whistle.
Tom Septon of San Diego accumulated one of the finest standard gauge collections and built one of the finest standard gauge layouts in the world. His collection included some 7,000 toy trains and accessories in mostly O and standard gauges from manufacturers such as Carlisle and Finch, Voltamp, and Lionel. In 2004, after Tom died, the Septon family donated the collection to the California State Railroad Museum. Not only did the Septons donate the collection, they also generously donated money to create and maintain the exhibit. The museum designers did a fine job. Display cases for the collection are housed in handsome, life-size replicas of legendary Lionel trains and accessories. There's the Lionel City Station, the 155 Freight Station, and a green Lionel State Set passenger car. Displays include toy trains from every era, starting with floor toys from the mid-1800s, including the U.S. Grant from 1870. The first toy train made by Joshua Lionel Cowan, the Electric Express from 1901, is on display, along with the rare Lionel Brass No. 7. Reproductions of toy train catalog covers take us back not only to the golden age of toy trains, but also to the golden age of the art of the illustrator. The largest is this 14 by 10 foot reproduction of Lionel's 1929